Taking flight is one couple's way of taking the pulse of some of America's overlooked places. And what they found may surprise you. Our cover story is reported by Lee Cowan.
A good craft beer starts with good water, and Duluth, Minnesota sits on the shores of some of the best. Lake Superior, the largest freshwater lake in the world, is what makes Duluth, Duluth. It's how its iron ore, grain, and timber made its way to world markets. But then came the industrial decline, and Duluth became just another Rust Belt community suffering an economic hangover. It turns out, however, that Lake Superior has just the right balance of minerals to make a pretty good Pilsner. And in 2013, Laura Mullen and Bryon Tonnis, along with their spouses, thought this flat Duluth neighborhood had the potential to fizz again.
There was a billboard 10, 20 years ago that said, "Last one leaving Duluth, turn out the light." There was this mentality that there were no jobs. And I definitely felt that too. I said, I have to create my own job if I'm coming back up here.
As soon as the Bent Paddle Brewery opened its doors, it helped a decaying part of Duluth become a destination. Restaurants and retail followed, all owned by young entrepreneurs carving out a new life in a town many had written off.
There's definitely a bit of a wave of people moving back that have lived here in the past and, looking at new opportunities and kind of thinking outside of the box to try to figure out how to make a good living here.
That kind of neighborhood comeback doesn't generally make the national headlines, but James Fallows, national correspondent for the Atlantic magazine, has a soft spot for microbrews.
What was your first craft beer?
I think it would have been Sam Adams.
Yeah.
And he sees beer betterment as an intriguing piece to a larger economic puzzle.
The existence of craft brews really is a marker of a town that's on the rise, and it employs hundreds of thousands of people across the country. So it's a real business that's making a real difference locally.
He and his wife Deb, an author in her own right, were doing research for a book they co-wrote called Our Towns. It's a travelogue of sorts of what they describe as a journey into the heart of America. It started back in 2013 when they posted a request on the Atlantic website asking readers to suggest towns they could visit that offered examples of America on the rise.
What happened when you sent out that request?
We got a tsunami of replies, and it wasn't just naming your town. It was these long, heartfelt, descriptive narrations of the stories of their towns. So I think that was the point where we thought we're onto something here.
Whatever it was that was happening, the Fallows thought it was telling a different story about America than the prevailing national narrative that the fabric of the country is unraveling. Instead, they found an almost universal determination to stitch things back together. The common thread was looking at the old with new eyes. This used to be Duluth's concrete burial vault factory until three guys from Minneapolis came and helped raise it from the dead. Now it's the home of Lall Designs, which fabricates vibrantly colored outdoor furniture in an eco-friendly way. Greg Benson is CEO.
It's 100% recycled from milk jugs.
From milk jugs?
Milk jugs.
He also started Epicurean, the maker of cutting boards and other gourmet kitchen utensils, all of them made out of an environmentally friendly wood composite.
People here, we recognize there's something happening here, and I don't think it's just because we're prideful of this place. I mean, there really is something happening here.
It's not just Duluth, of course. The Fallows saw similar things happening in towns all across the country.
And we're going to lift up.
Now, Jim happens to be a pilot. He figured if he and Deb were going to head to flyover country, what better way to do it than by flying themselves?
The whole idea of fly over America is just the opposite of what we felt like we're flying into America.
For 4 years, they hopscotched to places reporters don't generally go. Places like Redmond, Oregon, or Spearville, Kansas, or St. Mary's, Georgia. Nearly 50 towns in all.
Did you ever imagine you'd see so much of the country from a small plane?
No, never.
Their plane was a Cirrus SR-22, which coincidentally is yet another Duluth success story. The aircraft maker moved its headquarters to Duluth back in the mid-90s, and it grew fast.
It was a major factor in the town's modern emergence.
Nearly everywhere the Fallows landed, There were nuggets of success like that to boast about. New industry or innovations in education, expansion of public art, all of it mixed into a stew of reinvention that seems to present a view of the country far more optimistic than the one you might get if your window on the world is just cable news.
In a non-sappy, non-saccharine way, there are people who are aware of the national and regional and urban problems, but feel as if they're making headway.
This is certainly true of Greenville, South Carolina. It's a community about the same size as Duluth that had also lost its dominant industry, textile manufacturing. Early on, civic leaders began to recruit other industries to try and replace it. GE was one of the first to accept the invitation. Then came Michelin, most recently, BMW. But the heart of Greenville, its downtown, needed a shot in the arm too.
The first thing that towns seem to sit down and do when they're serious about trying to make improvements is figure out who they are.
One feature that made Greenville what it was the Reedy River. It spun many a mill wheel here over the years, and longtime Mayor Knox White had an idea to use that legacy to bring downtown Greenville back.
The beautiful waterfall was covered over by a 4-lane highway bridge for 40 years.
So no one ever saw it?
Most people who lived in Greenville all their lives had never seen the waterfall.
He convinced fiscal conservatives to tear down an otherwise perfectly good bridge to expose the falls once again.
It was a very hard sell that we're going to spend money to build a beautiful park around a waterfall you've never seen. Trust us. Until they did.
This is the result. An elegant pedestrian bridge replaced the highway. A jogging path now winds its way along the river. Trees and flowers sprouted. Nearby downtown sprouted too. Shuttered textile mills have become apartments and art galleries. It is, say the Fallows, civic resurgence at its best.
Long-term visioned people in all the different sectors working together to say, what will this town look like a generation from now?
Not that the places they visited don't have their troubles. They do. But it's the creativity, compassion, and generosity of small-town America that, to the Fallows anyway, are the driving forces behind how the country is remaking itself, one town at a time.
I think maybe the surprise factor was how hard people are trying to solve their problems or make things better or make things right.
It's not all doom and gloom.
It's definitely not all doom and gloom. We got our big problems, but the country has not lost what made it America to begin with.